Hey everybody, it's Brett and welcome back to my channel where today I am talking about March wrap-up. 13 books that I read this month, so stick around. I had some really good ones. All right, I love this month because it was a big mix of, I did some prize books, I did some stuff that I personally wanted to read, I read some stuff for authors that I was having on or about to have on the podcast. So it really made for an interesting group. The one thing I can say is I just became aware of this as I did my first quarter faves, which I'm going to post that video very soon. The one thing I have to up as I'm going forward is nonfiction. I just don't have enough nonfiction. And I read so much nonfiction last year, and I don't know why. For some reason I thought, oh, I have been reading so much nonfiction. And the only thing I've read so far this year is Raising Hair, so, which I loved, but I have to incorporate more. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to start with two of the books that were from prize lists, specifically the International Booker Prize. The first one is Hunchback by 𝗬𝗪cie h𝗂𝗧. I will say about both of these books that I've read from the International Booker long list, both of them surprised me in that shaking them both has been like, I haven't been able to, which only speaks about what great books they are. And when I first went through them, I was like, oh, this is good. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, these are great. And both of these are great. So this is so interesting. Look at just a slip of a novel, but it's about a woman who is living in an apartment building who has congenital myopathy, which is what actually the author also has, but it causes her to be in great pain a lot of times, among other physical characteristics. But because of that, she comes from a very wealthy family, and she's living in an apartment building that is for people with disabilities. While she's there, one day a nurse comes in, a male nurse, and something happens between them that kind of changes the whole trajectory of the novel. It brings up a whole host of really interesting questions, stuff that's certainly going to evoke conversation. It's a really, really interesting book. I don't want to say too much because it's so slim. To tell you too much would give everything away. And part of it with this book is about the surprise. So that was the first. The other is On the Calculation of Volume by Solveig Balle. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. I probably didn't, because if any of you know me, I'm dreadful at names. But this is the first book in a planned septology. The first two books are out now in the US, and I think the 3 and 4 are coming out in, I believe, November. How to sum this up? Groundhog Day. It is Groundhog Day. It is about a woman who is married, very happily married. She and her husband are collectors of rare books along with other kind of collectible items. Anyway, on November 18th, she gets stuck in the day. And by that, I mean the day keeps repeating on and over and over and over. And she doesn't know why, and she doesn't know what's happening. She informs her husband that this is happening. So it's what happens over a year stuck in one day. And there is a certain kind of claustrophobia that comes about with reading this book that I personally felt because of the situation that she finds herself in. It's also just so much about the minutia of life and the kind of small variations that happen day to day. It's a really interesting book. I haven't started the second volume yet, but I'm kind of like, how is this woman going to keep this going for 7 volumes? I have no idea. But again, it's not very long. It's really interesting. It's certainly, as I said in my review on Instagram, this will fill the Severance-like hole in your heart now that Severance is over. Okay, now I'm going to get into what I will call my podcast moment. A lot of these were books that I had read for guests on the Behind the Stack podcast. The first is Ray Naylor's Where the Axe is Buried. As you can tell, I marked this thing up a lot. Ray Naylor wrote this book called The Mountain and the Sea that was one of my favorite books. I think it came out 3 years ago, about basically a super octopus, a super cephalopod that these scientists begin to communicate with, which becomes a big deal because it's so highly intelligent. Many scientists feel that this 𝗂𝗹𝗪𝗏 could be used for medical things and medical breakthroughs and experiments. And what happens? This is his new book, where the axe is buried, set in a not too near distant future, about a fascist regime, about AI, and a group of rebels who go to take down the current government. There is no way to read this thing without seeing direct parallels with everything that's happening in our country right now, and yet that was not his intention when he wrote it. But it's really great, and oh my gosh, and Ray will be on my podcast next week, so look for that. But this is a really great book. All right, then was Paul Rudnick's What Is Wrong With You? Paul was just on the show. This is about a group of individuals who at first seem kind of connected, but they all come together by the end to go to this kind of wedding of the century of a tech billionaire, a la Steve Jobs, Apple or something. It sounds very much like an Apple-like company who's marrying this woman who was previously married to another one of the characters in the book. And all of these people come together for the wedding. It's very Paul Rudnick. It's very funny. It has moments that are very moving. I didn't like this quite as much as 𝗂𝗏 Covington, his last book, but it's still really entertaining. And if you want a book that will be great for summer, something that's just going to take your mind off all of the craziness, this could be that book. Then, Michele Norris's When the Harvest Comes. This is a debut novel. Michele Norris is the editor-in-chief of Electric Lit. She is also actually the first Black trans woman to be the editor-in-chief of any publication or any website. And she is fantastic. She is just light and so smart. This book is about a gay couple on their wedding day, and the protagonist of the book finds out that his father has just been in a horrible car accident. He had a very complicated relationship with his father, who was a reverend. And we find slowly through the course of the novel what that relationship was. It's a really, really, really beautiful debut. It is about finding yourself. It is about being true to yourself. It is about putting to rest our past. It's a really, really beautiful debut. This comes out April 15th, but When the Harvest Comes. Next, The Bright Years. All right, this thing I think you're going to see all over the place. I've already seen it all over the place on Instagram. People are absolutely loving this book by Sarah Damoff. Certainly one of the most beautiful covers of the year. This is, again, debut novel about a couple. We follow them from the 70s, I think almost up through 2019, the 70s through 2019. The husband is an alcoholic, and it's what happens and how it affects their relationship. They have a daughter who is growing up. So each section of the book is a different part of the family, which is a really great way to tell this story. But really surprised me. I guess this book surprised me because I love a generational family story anyway, but she totally sticks the landing on this. And I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. But if you're a fan of Claire Lombardo or Mary Beth Keane, this book is going to be right up your alley. So that's The Bright Years by Sarah Damoff. All right, then Disappoint Me by Nicola Dinen. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year. Nicola Dinen wrote this book, Bellies, that came out a few years ago, and I was so blown away by it. I could not believe it was a debut novel. And I hated the American cover, and I will just say that. And I actually bought the UK edition because I thought it made the book, it trivialized it. I thought it made it look like a rom-com, and it's not that. I just thought it was a really timely book about where we are and where we were and where we are as kind of people today, young people, especially in the dating world and young people's lives. This feels like a companion piece to Bellies. Disappoint Me is about a young trans woman who is in her early 30s, like 31, who has everything going for her. She has a successful job. She's trying to be a poet, kind of unsuccessfully, but she has a group of friends. And however, she's just come out of a relationship that's kind of stunned her. And she meets this seemingly perfect man. And so she begins to ponder her life and think, should she just be a trad wife? And is that the worst thing in the world? And should she do that? And so it's kind of their journey, her with this perfect guy. And slowly we get his backstory in kind of two parallel worlds, their current one and his past. She's so amazing. She is really like one of my favorite writers. She is so smart. She writes dialogue that is so real. Her characters feel, you just want to know them. You feel like they're your friends. I read her books and feel like I'm literally get dropped into these slices of life. I think, she is as good as like Sally Rooney to me in terms of the way she writes character and dialogue. I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. This is not out in the US until May 22nd. So put it on your list. It is out already in the UK. And if you're there, buy it. Okay. Another book I absolutely loved. This was a total surprise for me. I thought I might like this and I started to see some early reviews. And so I bought it, read it, flipped out over it, and called the publisher and said, I have to have her on my show, like immediately. I have to have her on the podcast. And I did. She is Emily St. James. The book is Woodworking. This is about oh my gosh, I'm thinking about it because I almost don't want to give too much away. Basically, it's about a trans individual who is a teacher in South Dakota who finds an unlikely ally in a student who is also trans. Now, you may be like, that sounds unbelievable. It's not. It's not at all. But the way that Emily St. James tells the story with this protagonist, it's so smart. It's so smart. And I don't want to tell you anything else. But I will say it is a fantastic book. It is funny. It is moving. It's the kind of thing that would be a perfect adaptation for like a movie, because there's nothing in this book that is going to quote unquote offend anyone. I will give this book and recommend this book to anyone who wants to understand what it is like for somebody who decides, or I should say, someone who realizes that they are in the wrong body and that they are trans. It's great. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I've also heard the audio of this is just fantastic. So again, it's really funny. It's really moving. Everyone that I've given this to has written me back or texted me and said, oh my God, I love that book so much. So there you go. All right, then Make Sure You Die Screaming by Z. Carlstrom. This comes out April. I don't have an exact date. Sorry. This comes out in April. This really intrigued me, and I loved this cover. This is basically about a non-binary individual who goes on a road trip with a friend through the South to find his father. His mother calls and says, your father's missing. He has a very fractured relationship with his parents who became Trumpers. And so he goes off to find them. And so the premise of this really intrigued me. Z. Carlstrom, they are really intriguing to me. And I'm absolutely want to see what else they write next. The book was a mixed bag for me. It started great, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be fantastic. Where the book didn't work for me is I wanted it to go further. Like, I felt like there was an edginess to this. a prevalence or an undercurrent of potential violence that I almost wanted to really happen. And I felt like it was held back. There was some restraint on the whole thing. And so that kind of bummed me out. I listened to this on audio too, and the main character's sidekick is this young girl that he picks up. And I, on audio especially, found her so annoying and unlikable that it really turned me off a bit. So I don't know if I would have had a different experience if I read this. And again, I think that they're a good writer and I want to see what they write next, but this wasn't. This was the only book this month that really wasn't a win for me. So, all right, then Nesting by Róisín O'Donnell, which was on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction. And I have to say, this totally bummed me out that it didn't make the short list. I flipped out over this book. I loved this book so much. Again, debut novel, loving all these debuts, about a woman in Ireland, a mother of two, who finds out she's pregnant with a third, who walks out of her life one day with her husband because he is abusive. It's not a physically abusive relationship, but he's horribly verbally abusive, and the mental toll that begins to take. Probably this has one of the most despicable characters that I've read in literature this year, but oh my gosh, did I love this. Character of Sierra Roy, the mom, is so winning, and what she does to survive with her kids is incredible. And she goes into, someone can probably talk more about this than I know, but there is a whole housing system in Ireland. And one of the things that they do is put people who are potentially homeless into hotels, but on certain floors, kind of towards the top. There are rules, like they cannot come through the lobby. They have to go up the back staircase or the back elevator. And so this is where she moves into with her two daughters while she is pregnant. And what happens? For those of you who watched the Netflix series Made and liked that, I think you'd find a lot of similarities, but it is such a winning character. All of the characters in this, her kids, the cleaning guy that works on the floor that she becomes friends with, the woman who lives next to her, her sister. I mean, it's so good. And again, I read and listened to this on audio, and it's a great audiobook as well. So I can't recommend this enough. Again, I'm so bummed it didn't make the short list of the Women's Prize, but a truly fantastic book. All right, then I read Devil is Fine, which was on the long list for the Aspen Words Prize. And I had this book forever. Celadon had given me a copy of it, but I never read it, but never got rid of it. And I'm so glad I didn't. Hello, intriguing cover. And I had talked about this before, and one of you had said the jellyfish will make sense. And yes, they absolutely did. I thought this was so good. This is about a man, mixed race individual, who is divorced from his wife. He is a writer who has written one book that was a bestseller. He's struggling with his second. His son has died, which we don't know how at the start of the novel, and a lot of the book is told in flashbacks. But his son has passed away, and when this man's grandfather dies, he has left his home in the South to his son. So because his son has passed, he has gone to claim the property. But when he gets down there to claim the property, they find two bodies buried in the land. And it turns out that it was a plantation and grandfather was a slave owner. So how that plays out, as well as him trying to put to rest the ghost of his son. Really good, really interesting narrative. This is the first book I've ever read by John Vercher. It won't be the last. I just thought this was really, really, really compelling. Total surprise, and I really liked it. Then Twist, which is, I love this cover so much, by Colin McCann. I listened to this on audio and I loved it so much, I went out and got a copy of it. And this book blew me away for the premise of the book. And again, writers are so amazing, and the stuff they're coming up with. This is about an Irish reporter, a journalist, who is assigned to go aboard a boat that its job is, I had no idea about this. Under the sea, there are cables that run all over the world that carry all of our information, all communication. I thought all of this stuff was cloud-based. I thought everything was up satellites and up in the air. I had no idea that all of these things were running under our oceans. The problem is if the lines break or get caught or snag or, cause disruption, then, it causes information blackouts and they have to be fixed. So these boats go out and these men have to dive down, find the cables, bring them up, and then they seem fairly easy to repair, but then put them back down to get everything back online. So this journalist, is going on one of these boats with the guy who's kind of the captain, who has his own story. And this captain is married to an actress who's becoming very popular, who is in London doing a play. When they go on these boats, they're not back until the work is done. So it can be weeks. It could, there's really no time frame. It is so good. And Colin McCann reads the book, and he's an amazing narrator. It's not very long. There is a whole passage in here about free diving, going down without a tank. Is it too punny to say it took my breath away? Anyway, I thought this was another knockout book by Colin McCann. Really, really, really fantastic. And I'm not seeing much of this anywhere yet, so I'm so curious if any of you have read it. So let me know. And then the final book was Stephen Graham Jones' The Buffalo Hunter Hunter, which, first of all, beautiful. This is the Barnes & Noble edition. This was totally judge a book by its cover, and that's why I bought it. I've read one other Stephen Graham Jones book, and I thought it was fine, but this I thought was far superior. And this, in a lot of ways, was a really great book for me. First of all, I love the premise, which I'm just calling it Interview with the Indigenous Vampire. It's a historical novel, effectively, about a member of the Blackfeet tribe who is in an attack one evening by what he calls a cat man, becomes a vampire. What he does is, when the Blackfeet tribe is basically wiped out by soldiers, his mission is to destroy and enact revenge on all those people. But the book is told between this indigenous vampire and the priest that he goes to make his confessions to. The priest ends up having a great-great-great-great-granddaughter who, at the start of the novel, has been given these old documents, which are effectively the journal entries of the priest and the back and forth. So that's the story. It's really good. My only downsides to this were it was a little long. I also listened to some of this on audio. Shane Ghostkeeper, who reads The Indigenous Vampire, was fantastic. And Marin Ireland, who's one of my favorite actresses and narrators, she reads the granddaughter. Owen Teale, who reads The Priest, he had a great voice. It just, the further I got to the book, there was a kind of sameness to it, and it almost started to put me to sleep. So again, I'm not sure if this book would have been a higher ranking for me if I had just read it, but I didn't. I shared it between the two. And so for that, I was like, it was good. I didn't think it was amazing. And I would really classify this, it's certainly horror and it gets very bloody, but it's in a very non-traditional way. It's more, am I kidding? It is gory, but it's historical horror. All right. So for me, that is a good book, which I feel would probably be better just to be read, in my opinion. in my humble opinion. So that's it, folks. That was my March. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you read. Is there anything in here that sounds interesting to you or that you've already read? I know for sure some of you have read Nesting because you've told me. Thank you all for watching. Again, I'm having some really interesting guests upcoming on the Behind the Stack podcast. And for those of you who have been checking that out, I appreciate so much. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe. As always, I will be back soon, not only with my what I want to read in April, but also my first quarter faves. All right. Thanks. I'll see you.